So there are two founders in our portfolio that I'd like to highlight for the board. I'd like to each of them to tell a little bit about their company and to share their stories and how kind of their financing journey. So we have two folks, and we'll start with Kall, who's the CEO of Claira.ai, and then we'll move to Rambus, the CEO of Hush. So Katie, would love for you to start and share your story.
Yeah, great. Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. I'm always happy to talk about our journey in Invest Detroit. I apologize for some noise potentially. I am actually in Las Vegas right now, partly for pleasure. I'm meeting two of my West Coast teammates who I have not met yet because of the state of the world. And I'm also here to close a big customer. So that's why I have this going on in the background. So I'm a born and raised Michigander. I currently live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My family's in Holland. I went to the University of Michigan. I spent 10 years in workforce development at a 501c3 headquartered in Ann Arbor. So workforce and economic development in the state has always been on my mind. And my startup, Claira, does exactly that. So we are a high-tech company. We use machine learning to change the way that businesses quantify their human capital in order to make better decisions on hiring, optimizing their people, preparing for the future of work. So we call ourselves a competency analytics engine. And we're currently selling into large enterprises. And we also have a marketplace module that helps connect people to work. So enterprises use us for the data and the competency model, and then they also use us to hire if they need to hire. So we actually do have talent online on our software now in all 50 states, almost 10,000 workers online, incredibly diverse talent that's never been on other job sites, actually, about 70% of them. And most of the workers, the biggest number is in Michigan. So we've actually connected unemployed folks in Michigan with jobs using this new system and helped businesses in Michigan hire using the new system. So that was exciting. I actually went to MIT and did my MBA there in order to get this business off the ground. And so I was making a really big point of reconnecting to the Michigan ecosystem. And I felt very strongly about having Michigan capital in the round. I knew Invest Detroit was the most active and most well-known investor in the state. And so I had met with, I think, Ben and Zhao very early. I think we were pre-MVP launch when I first met with Ben and Zhao. And fun fact, we launched our MVP 1 year ago today, actually an hour from now. So we're celebrating our 1 year of the MVP, on Veterans Day 2020. So I met with them pre-MVP in the summer. And one of the difference makers was Ben had said, you're a little early, but we love this business. And not just come back, but come back when you can show us these things. And so they gave me enough feedback and enough faith in the fund that they were going to hear me out if I came back with the traction that they had described in order to qualify for a pre-seed investment. And so we went out and did that. We launched the MVP. We got as many workers as we could. We started getting revenue in, got some other investor interest. And then I went back to Invest Detroit, Ben and Zhao, and I had several meetings with them, and the process moved very quickly. And they said, you're right, this is what we talked about, 10 or 12 months ago. And that was very unique. That level of feedback and sort of sticking to the promise about what the fund was looking for, I found to be very unique in the fundraise. I did not go back to some of the other funds that I met with in the Midwest after having the same conversation, because I knew that if Invest Detroit came in, the rest of the round would come together. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as Invest Detroit came in and was willing to share their diligence, the rest of our pre-seed came together and ended up being oversubscribed by 100,000 after all was said and done. So that was a huge turning point for us. I'll just end with a couple of things that I think are really important about Invest Detroit and the team that I found to be unique in my experience so far. One was the very specific traction feedback and just being a true pre-seed fund. There are so few of them, as Patty mentioned. A lot of funds say that they're pre-seed and seed or pre-seed to A, but I find that there are not a lot of funds who are really comfortable at that critical early stage. And that's what I found my experience with Invest Detroit to be. The traction may not look exactly like what it looks like at seed or what they say they want in East Coast meetings, for example, what they say the unit economics should look like, but there are indicators of traction. And if you can make those calls really early, hopefully you can win big because you're taking bigger risk. But I've continued to tell many different founders and investors that Invest Detroit is one of the few true pre-seed funds that is comfortable and competent at the earliest of stages. And it's fair, it's not an exaggeration to say that without Invest Detroit coming in, we might not be a business. People might not be getting jobs. We might not have closed the round out. And so, being able to make those calls early is literally life or death, because you're either going to become a business or you're just going to remain an idea. And so the better we can do at pre-seed, making the hardest calls, that's obviously everything for founders. The other two things I'd mention are connections within the Michigan ecosystem. So Patty's made a couple of connections, I think in Grand Rapids in particular. And so what happens is one connection leads to a second one and a second one leads to the third one. And it's so time intensive to figure out who you need to go to when you're selling B2B SaaS or building any business really. And that takes out a lot of my time. And so those targeted introductions to organizations in the state that are going to help us get the business up and running have started to pay off. So the connection to Business Accelerator Fund offset a bunch of our early legal costs. We got connected with the Tech Council, the Right Place Tech Council over in Grand Rapids. And we now are negotiating 3 contracts as a result of those intros directly with customers. So connection to the ecosystem has been a really big deal for our business. And the last thing I'd mention is just the brand. So I find that Invest Detroit is very well known outside the state and outside the Midwest. So Boston funds knew Invest Detroit. I met with a couple of California funds who knew Invest Detroit. There's another company in the Google Accelerator with us, I think Pocket Nest. And so there was recognition of Invest Detroit within the Google family as well when we started talking about venture funds. And so that brand positioning is being very active, and the press that the fund gets around that, I think, has been a big benefit to us as well.
So Katie, I don't think you could have given a better testimonial, and I did not pay her for that.
Right.
I said, come on, be authentic, tell your story, and share your path. So hold on, because I want to make sure the board has a chance to ask some questions. And thank you so much for taking time out of your personal and professional day. So I appreciate that so much. But Mick, I want to turn it over to you, and would love for you to share your story.
Sure. So happy to be here. Mick Rambus, co-founder, CEO of Hush. Born and raised in Detroit, 7 Mile in Greenfield, if anyone knows where that part of the city is. I went east to school to MIT, actually. So funny enough, another connection there. And started my first company, 21 years ago with SoftBank money in the .com bubble and bust. Learned hard what to do, what not to do. Ended up going corporate, public company, back and forth. And more recently was running a division at Equifax for their consumer data division, which is how sort of Hush came to be as an idea along the way. Hush, very briefly, is an organization which helps consumers protect themselves from identity theft, online stalking, harassment, doxing, and all the other unfortunate consequences of the digital age in which we now live. We offer a very straightforward service that individuals can subscribe to through their companies, actually, and is aligned with what the information security officer wants to do in protecting the employees at organizations these days. So we're right in the middle of being a cybersecurity organization that is happenstance driven by artificial intelligence. And I'll give the sort of quick view of the ID Ventures story. Raising money as an early stage company, especially in AI, can be quite difficult, right? The average number of firms or individuals an organization has to talk to is 46. It's a lot of doors to knock on to raise a pre-seed fund. And like Katie said, a lot of folks say they do pre-seed, say they do high risk. The reality is very few do that, right? And so it was great to have those conversations and a meaningful open door that was authentic. That was fantastic. The other, which is because we are so focused on AI in our company, far more so I think than many other organizations, the amount of capital required to actually build our AI to be functional was larger than a lot of other stories, right? We're not quite your standard sort of SaaS or B2B. As a result of having to build that engine, needed more capital than we would have liked to get to MVP. And so uniquely along the way, talked to a number of players. Only ID Ventures really did the diligence on the technology side to understand what we were capable of and really wanted to dig in. Others hadn't done that. And so I think when we put together our pre-seed round as well, knowing that IG Ventures had done that diligence, we passed those gates, made it a lot easier for us too to pull together the rest around, as well as IG Ventures visibility in the community, right? So knowing we could point to IG Ventures as an investor helped a lot for the others and eventually rounded out the round from there. And also fortunate to oversubscribe at this early stage. So we're earlier, right? We launched our MVP in September. So we're excited to be out of the gates. We've got customer contracts in place right now, and we're looking to add on as we sprint through the rest of the year. But having a lot of fun and really enjoying Michigan. Last thing I'll say is I'm a returnee. So I just got back to Michigan about 6 weeks ago. And so very excited to not only build a great organization, but also give back to the community moving forward.